Maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to episode 291 of the GeoGearHeads. I'm Daryl W4, back as usual with Chris of the Northwest.
Daryl, you know, I have to say that this is one of my favorite types of shows. Now, I'm not here to disparage the other shows or to say I love one child more than another, but you know I do. And speaking of loving one child more than another, we have a guest tonight, Scott Burks.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Well, we're doing well, and it sounds like you're doing a lot better too now that you're no longer homeless.
Well, I never actually was homeless per se. It's just I just switched homes. I was homeless for like 6 hours. That was the worst of it. But you know, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad Chris finally lifted the moratorium on me being on this show.
Well, he did. I waited until he was out to schedule it.
Yeah, no, I had still vetoed it, but you know, in this show, Daryl is 51% of the votes.
Oh, is that what he is?
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I do the scheduling, so you know that's kind of how it works. He who
yeah.
controls the scheduling controls the content.
It's been a while since I've been on this show. Daryl, I know you know. When's the last time I was on this show?
I actually don't know, but it was not this year, if I remember.
No, it hasn't been. No, not this year at all.
Yeah,
no.
I want to say it was back in like November-ish.
Yeah.
So I think this is the longest hiatus you've had.
I am the Charo on this
4
show.
years?
You know. So
Let's just bring him back the next 3 weeks in a row. Make up for it. What do you think, Scott? You doing anything?
On Thursday nights, you know, funny thing is that me and Jesse were actually walking into a hardware store, and Daryl texted me. I'm like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be on Daryl's show tonight." Like, we gotta go. We gotta hurry.
Well, you could have a lot of fun in the next 3 weeks because next week we're doing puzzles again with Team AJK, Jennifer.
No, I'm no good at that show. No.
Yeah, so that could be a lot of fun for you.
But she's very good, and it makes us look.
And then the week after, we're going to be talking about live streaming again.
Live streaming. Are you going to talk about your 360?
Wait, that's going to be one of the topics, yeah.
Nice. There you go. Yeah.
And then Cashley is going to be on the 17th.
Nick, my boy, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of shows coming up that you're going to be interested in, I'm sure.
I listen to your shows, dude, unless it's not up my alley. If it's up my alley, I'll listen.
Munzie?
What? Munzie gets deleted immediately.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. No love lost for Munzie.
No, I have no
and
interest.
of course, you're playing Garfield Go then, right? Because it's
I'm playing what?
with Munzie. Yeah. What? I agree with you on that one.
Hey, I did finally delete it from my phone.
What? Munzie?
Garfield Go.
I don't know what Garfield Go even is.
It's a location-based game.
Is it like actual Garfield, like the cat?
It's it's kind of trying to be a location-based game in the genre of Pokemon Go, but
like Jim Davis Garfield, like Odie and.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's Odie in anything aside from some of the illustrations. It's just Garfield sitting there asking to be fed and walking around
in your house.
It could be in your house.
Yeah.
It's AR, right? I'm assuming it's just AR.
No. Well, yeah.
Well, somewhat, yeah.
It's not AR in the sense of like a what's the one I'm thinking of?
Ingress?
No, the
Pokemon.
It was the Alien one where you actually see the spaceship crash, and they're trying to do more intense AR, and it's an older game, but we talked about it on the show probably like 3 years ago. And I never got through even one chapter of it because it's so intense. But it's more AR than like Pokemon Go, where it's just doing the overlays. But Garfield is the Pokemon Go style of AR, where you can turn it off and your gameplay is better, but you're really just trying to throw pizza into a dish in the real world. That's like that's pretty much the summary of Pokemon Go.
How many stars does it have in the iTunes App Store is the question.
I haven't looked since it launched. And when it launched, I think it was like 5 stars. So
no
way.
Was it
when
really?
it launched, there was a bunch of reviews and the game had just launched. And I love it. I've been playing it. And I'm like, how can you been playing it? It just launched.
Right, it just came out, right?
So you can go and buy reviews. I think they did.
Yeah, probably. Well, and there's been a lot of situations where you get sabotage too on the App Store. People have been trying to make it look like their competitors are posting reviews on their own, because Apple frowns on that and will actually shut down apps for that. So apparently that's become a little thing now.
You sabotage it and make it look like you're the
so
company.
The other app gets points in the store.
People have way too much time. Way too much time.
Surprisingly, it has 4 stars.
This still has 4 stars?
Yeah.
Garfield Go? Is it really called Garfield Go?
It is. Yeah. It probably does have a market. I just can't imagine who would actually want to play it.
Garfield fans?
No.
No, yeah, because if you're a Garfield fan, you're probably going to get pretty disgusted by it.
Nobody's a Garfield fan.
I think
nobody's a Garfield fan.
Saying.
Garfield was popular like when I was in like 5th grade.
Yeah, it was something from like our childhood.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and there were a couple of movies that flopped.
Yeah, right.
But Team Maviju was saying that he played it and was annoyed, I think is how he put it, that Garfield didn't look and act like he expected him to.
Did he talk like he
doesn't talk.
Murray?
No, it doesn't talk at all. No.
Really?
It's all pantomiming and everything. I don't think there's even any thought bubbles on that one.
What happened to Scott? He's probably going to download Garfield Go right now, and he needed the bandwidth, so he hung up.
Maybe. I'm wondering if he's busy sabotaging our iTunes reviews so that we get pulled from the store, and it's just geocaching podcasts that you can find.
There you go.
See, he's the smart cookie,
I will say, and I'm not going to beat on this app all day, but the top review right now in Garfield Go says fake reviews taken down by Apple. Clearly a scam app.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there you have it.
Yeah, and well, the promise of Garfield Go was that you can get real world prizes, the gift cards for stuff. And the way that they do those, I don't see how you could possibly actually win. And maybe if you're playing constantly all the time, and then you could get something. But
right,
even on the weekend where I tried to spend a lot of time playing it just to see, I didn't even come close. I got at most like 2 pieces of one of them.
I've never gotten more than 1 piece.
Yeah,
of a prize. So.
Yeah, and then they expire by the time you get a 3rd piece, and you're starting over.
Well, Daryl, have you seen that one app that they have called Sweatcoin? Have you ever heard of that?
No, I have not.
Oh, Daryl, if you're a walker, you count your steps and all that. Sweatcoin, you put it on your phone, and it gives you points that you could then exchange, a coin that you can then exchange for stuff that they have in their store. And the stuff in their store always changes.
Yeah, there was another one that I was using that got bought out by Higgy. And that was really cool. But by the time Higgy got it, it was stripped down that I really didn't enjoy doing it anymore. But the parent one for that, which I can't remember the name. I think you were part of that too. I think I had sent you the invite back in the Fitbit days.
Me?
Yeah. I don't think Jesse had a Fitbit at that point, but you had the Fitbit, and we're doing the challenges.
Yeah.
So I sent you the link, and I think you signed up for that too, where you'd get all these gift certificates, and every so often they'd have like a exchange, 100 points for, a free sample of this energy bar or something.
Yeah, that's kind of what like Sweatcoin is. It's like you just earn, you get in. It's funny because you can only, I have it on my phone. It just sits there, and I'm just building up coin, because like I don't even look at it anymore. But and then you could buy higher tiers. Like you could only do 6,000 steps a day, but you can, if you spend $4 a month, you can bring it up to 10, or $8 a month, you can bring it up to 20, 1,000 steps to record a day. So and then it's sweat coin. I mean, maybe someday I'll buy something, but
You're
it's an
just
app. Sits on my
accumulating.
phone and just rings up steps. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love that concept of rewarding for exercise.
sure.
Yeah,
I don't want to
it's a
exercise for
great
free.
concept.
Come on. What's the exercise for free? It's for suckers.
I need all the motivation I can get because I don't get any exercise when I walk the dog. Yeah, I get steps in, but there's no exercise there. So I need something to motivate me to go out and do exercise because, after you come back from walking the dog, it's just like, let me get some beer and.
I know Jesse made me ride my bike to dinner tonight.
Oh,
I'm like, I gotta ride my bike. Then I gotta ride back. It was like,
and that was just like upstairs to the
was
dining
like
room and back.
3.5 miles I had to ride
nice
tonight.
See, I have not gone out since the challenge ended last month, but most of that is because it's either been raining or really sticky. And like today, humid.
I know what you mean. I'm kidding.
Yeah. But it was so bad, even like today. Yesterday we were at, I want to say 87 degrees and it was nice and comfortable. Today it's 81 and we're all dying. The dog doesn't want to go walking because,
Fozzie's like, no, I'm good.
No, he literally sits down and just, I'm not moving. Sometimes he's like, carry me home. But when he gets like this sticky, he's like,
take the dog
I'm not moving. Don't take me. Yeah. All right, now that we've blown 12 minutes just talking about miscellaneous junk, let's move on to the next piece of miscellaneous junk that comes to us from R. Reagan. He actually directed us to a post on the geocaching.com forums. It's because, if it's on the geocaching.com forums, I tend not to go there. So he has to direct us there. But the post reads, based on the National Geographic article, can Pokemon Go get players into national parks? It looks like the national parks might have changed their view on geolocation games in the park. One of our goals as a part of the National Park Service Centennial is to connect with and create the next generation of park visitors, supporters, and advocates, writes Rains in an email. Games that use geolocation are new and emerging opportunity to bring new audiences to the park. This article goes into more detail specifically for Pokemon Go. One of our goals as part of the National Park Service Centennial is to actually, that's a repeat. Okay, we'll skip that because it's repeated again. Then it says, currently grandfathered virtuals and Earth caches are pretty much what our game has to offer. Much as the NPS is trying to generate more interest in going to parks and foster love of the outdoors in a new generation, it seems we ought to be doing something similar. While Earth caches are educational, not every park has geological features worthy of one, nor do many players have an interest in them. I know new virtuals. I'm sorry?
Don't tell Land Monkey that.
Yeah. Well, I concur on this because one of the national parks is Steamtown. There's no geologic features in a roundhouse. So, you're not going to put an Earth cache at Steamtown. Anyway, I know new virtuals are no more, but as a cache type, they are perfect for the parks and they can educate and be set up to safeguard the park property like vegetation, unlike physical caches. Geocaching.com, together with the Park Service, could innovate together by finding appropriate places for new virtuals, but only in national parks and monuments, including the National Historic Parks. This limited relaxation of the ban on virtuals would not resurrect the problems that led to their retirement. Badges or awards could exist for players who find a certain number of them. No new icon type would be needed. Well,
Yeah,
one of the
why
points.
don't they just make like virtuals like Earth caches where you have it's a whole different section where you have to go and you have to get through, that you have to, jump through hoops to get it. So you can't do like, this is where I get my first kiss, like it's an actual reason for it kind of a thing. I mean,
well, and one of the things that we've talked about several times here is having something like UNESCO, not the appropriate agency, but something like UNESCO, a historic version of the Geologic Service, which I'm totally forgetting what that one is called right now. But some historic authority handle it the way that the Earth caches are done. That wouldn't handle it for things like it wouldn't handle things like the art that would be nice to have. Maybe something that's not geologic but is still an interesting feature, like plant life. That doesn't address those kind of situations, which would also be good for the parks.
Or how about just allow virtuals in state parks? You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, and this is I think where he's going with it, and I'd love to see it, is some kind of park cache, so that it's only available to preserves or historic sites, that kind of thing, where you can't put a physical cache, and it's only available to the park management to list. So I could see something like that working. I don't know that it's worth the effort to actually go and do that, because the problem is if they're going to do something like that, they have to work with like the national parks to get them to list, and then you have to work with the land managers at each of those parks. So it would be a very involved process. I think it would be worthwhile, but I don't know that Brian would think that it's worthwhile. And I'm not sure it's one that you'd have to sell on it either.
But even Earth caches, it to get where it was, it didn't start out that way. It had now it's a well-oiled machine on how to get it done.
Yeah, and they had a lot of trouble getting stuff up and running with that as well.
Right. So it's just
there are some parks in the National Park Service that do have caches, and they have a little geotrail too. So I don't know that opening up the virtuals is necessarily a good idea, because if they were to open up those virtuals, I think it would shut down any possibility of a physical.
But why have a physical if you have the virtual?
Well, because geocaching.com really wants a physical container. And I think it's cool to have that physical container.
Of course.
So if they were to have the virtuals as an option, the parks aren't going to be as likely to allow a physical container at all. And all of the physical containers that are in the parks right now, as I understand it, have been placed by the Park Service. And they're fairly, again, I haven't done any of these, but as I understand it, they're fairly close to something, and they're like on a building or something like that.
They're not sending you through the vegetation to try and get to it.
Yeah, and it's not off the beaten path. It's in well-traveled areas. Right. So
they don't want you there.
Way to make it work.
Yeah.
So if they can find the way to make it work, I think we would rather have, as a community, the physical cache than a virtual cache.
Of course, yes.
So I'm making the argument against virtuals, despite the fact that I want virtuals to come back.
I think I've never met somebody who doesn't want virtuals to come back.
Amazing. I know a lot of people who don't want virtuals to come back in this area. We did have a lot of those lame, this was the first kiss.
Did you? Yeah. See, those McDonald's are stupid.
Booths. Yeah, but yeah. So we did have a few of those around here. It was getting out of control, and they were happy when it got archived. So, there are people here, mostly the older cachers, not older by chronological years, but early adopter cachers that remember the problems and don't want to see them come back. I would really like to see virtuals come back with modifications. And the lab caches, I think, are good at a direction for them to go. But that certainly doesn't seem like where it's headed.
I don't know. All right. So is there anything more to the story, or is that it?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
We're done.
Okay. I know we cut it
although
off.
I will say that we should have a new icon for it if it comes to that.
Yeah, I think it should, because I think there's going to be a difference between them. So
yeah,
even if it's a subtle difference.
Well, because it doesn't have a physical container, it can't be any of the physical locations, and it's not going to be an Earth cache. And I don't want to see it, if it's limited like that, I don't want to see it as the virtual cache. Among other things, then you're expanding a type of cache that has been retired.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the joys of the virtual caches, the webcam caches, is you can't add any more. So you're trying to get those as they fade away,
Right.
and get as best a percentage of the active ones as you can.
Yeah, but are there even new webcams? Are there even new ones? I mean, like,
No,
that's
you're
such an
not allowed
old
to list.
concept.
Well,
No,
there
I'm saying, but,
actually
like,
are a bunch
I
of
mean,
new
I mean,
webcams.
actually out there, you know. Like,
Yeah, well, think about that kiosk that I took a picture at and sent it to you. Some stupid one in the center of Chicago
right,
when I was there like 2 years ago.
right,
It's one of these big giant touchscreen kiosks
Right,
that you
right.
email the photo. Yeah,
Well,
they're putting them out, but
it's
very
begging for a webcam cache.
exactly,
That's
exactly.
Wrigley Field too. Wrigley Field's got a webcam too. That's begging for a
Sure. Yeah, there's a
cache.
lot of these little webcams, but they're not the monitor the street corner anymore. You've got more of the ones
right,
that are,
right.
do an overlay.
Right.
And I think Garrett's actually has that in the store over here.
That's Garrett's.
which
It's
is-
a webcam. You're kidding.
Yeah, I think that they actually do have the webcam where you stand in front of it and it's got the popcorn, that it puts in front of you. So, boink, email that photo to yourself and upload it with your log.
Right. There you go. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. They've made a comeback, but it's totally different than what the webcams were when.
Yeah, I mean,
the
that's
webcam
like that.
caches
That's
were
how
popular.
dated that geocaching is that webcam caches existed. That's
Yeah.
such an old, outdated.
How about a
thing.
Ring doorbell cache?
Ooh.
Those
Oh,
doorbell.
like in the tree, like in the
buttons.
woods.
No. The doorbell buttons. So you have to go up and ring the doorbell and get the cache owner to send you the photo of you ringing the doorbell,
What
and
is
that's your cache.
Are you saying that exists, or are you saying that's a great idea?
No. I'm saying, how about that for a really annoying cache type?
I would say-
Though I could see you doing that, Scott. That's kind of like the bottle cap in your front lawn.
Well, I wanted to do one where and Groundspeak totally nixed it real quick. My brother-in-law owns a business, and he wanted people to come in. I'm like, all right, well, I'll put a cache and I'll say you got to go in and talk to Gary and give him the magic word, and he'll hand you the cache. And Groundspeak's like, and this is 8 years ago. I mean, they're like, Groundspeak's like, no.
Yeah, they actually did allow a few of those, like the hotel for one of the CoinFests that I was at.
Mhm.
The front desk had the cache, and because it was the site of a mega event, they allowed the exception, and it stayed active for several years.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the one in Milwaukee is kind of like that.
Oh, I think I know that's a letterbox, isn't it?
No,
No, okay, that's
no,
not the one.
the one in the safe house. The one that's
Oh, that one.
the
Yeah.
one in the bar. There's a cache. Anybody who doesn't know, there's a cache in Milwaukee. It's at a bar called the Safe House, and the cache is actually inside the bar. You have to go and you have to find the cache. It's somewhere inside the bar, and then you have to have the bartender get the cache for you to sign it. I
And,
can't remember. Just you remember the name of that cache?
I think
I
it's
just
safe.
found
Okay.
one similar to that at a visitor center in Canada.
Covert cache?
In
Covert cache. That's what's called, the covert cache.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Daryl, you haven't been to covert cache yet?
No, I haven't been.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I haven't spent enough
Daryl.
time up there since I started caching.
Daryl.
When I go up that way, it's going to West Bend, and that's it.
Well, Milwaukee's on the way to West Bend there, champ.
I know. I actually stayed in Milwaukee one year because I couldn't get a hotel in West Bend area.
Wait, hold on. What's that?
GC 3798.
GC 3798 covert cache. There you go. How many favorites?
567?
Woo. That's a lot of favorites.
Yes, it is.
567.
I would have gotten your Mary Hyde souvenirs.
Yes. So
But
I mean,
Climax-
so that's one of the few that actually do that, and I see Doug Jones has one too.
Yeah.
I found a cache in a visitor center in Florida. He had to ask for it. So yeah,
Yeah,
they
well,
are.
I was going to say one of the ways that I've seen people get around that is it's just listed as a multi-cache, and then the final stage tells you go in and ask for this. So they don't actually list that final stage on geocaching.com.
Cheating.
Yes, it
Cheating.
is.
Well,
But
I
it
actually have
works.
my smartphone rules cache. I have a cache called Smartphone Rules. It's a multi. Well, not really a multi, it's a puzzle cache. And the last stage is you have to call me. Is what it is. But it's actually a fake number, and then you get the answering machine and it gives you the chords.
Right, right.
Yes. But I guess
All right.
that's technically
We
not
are
legal.
no. Well, actually, I think it is now.
Is it?
Yeah. As long as it's accessible 24/7, because that was one of their catches, is they
Yeah,
wanted it
totally is. accessible. It's a Google Voice number. It's a total Google Voice number.
Yeah. So I think that's because there's a lot of those tech caches is what they were calling them for a while, like pre-gadget caches. They were calling them tech caches, where you have some kind of technical problem that you have to, technology problem that you have to solve. A lot of them were using the just call this number. Some were tones that you had to decipher. There were a few different ones like that, but it's the technology based ones, and there was quite a few that use the cell phone or the phone numbers.
Mhm.
But almost all of them, you don't have to be in any given location. You just have to be able to get to a phone to call.
Right.
And a lot of them will have actually, I think Podcaster did coverage of one that was in like Griffith Park, maybe, but you had to go through. It wasn't a geocache. It was a puzzle that was set up by someone else, where you had to go through and go to each of these different locations. You went there, typed in the access code, and it would give you that clue. So you went to the next one, solved the puzzle, and it would give you the next thing. So it just kept going like that. And I think there were like one or two of the caches that were set up in a very similar manner, where you had to call at each of like 3 or 4 stages to find the clue to the next.
You actually had to call in.
Yeah, it was a phone number. And there were also ones that would do email, where you had to email to this specific address with this specific thing, and it was just an autoresponder.
Yeah, I have that with my Smartphone Rules cache as well. It does that. It's you have to email, and then I email you back the number to okay, now call. Yeah.
So I last I knew, most of those were still allowed as the unknown caches.
Yeah, that would be an unknown. I mean, I remember years ago. That's not around anymore. Walt Grogan had a cache where it was all done. He databased the whole thing, and it took you to a page, and then you had to you went to a page and asked you a question and gave you the coordinates, and you went to the cache, and it said he asked you a question like, what are the numbers in the cache? So you go get the numbers, you punch them back into the computer, punch them back in, and then you go to the next one. You know what I'm saying? Go to the next page and say, okay, now go here and do this. And you got to remember, this is back in like 2007 when you didn't really have a smartphone that could do that. So you literally had to go there, go back home, punch in the number, go back to the new place, come back home. Yeah, it was really irritating.
Yeah. And that's part of why I think they didn't really catch on. But let's move on, because we're at already 28 minutes, and we're not going to get through much of this rundown. It is all going to be for the patrons if we don't move it. So, Chris, why don't I have you read the LNN radio email about the changes to the FCC? And unfortunately, I did try to get connected with him, and it's my fault. I didn't get a chance to connect at all this week, but he was going to sit down and kind of talk it over with me. So I really don't know that much about this, and he was our expert. So we'll let his email speak for us.
I want to say, bring back locationless caches. Okay, with that being said, LNN Railroad wrote, the FCC is changing some radio rules. FRS, or Family Radio Service, is getting more channels and more power. They did not make GMRS license free as some expected. They're going to stop allowing the sale of radios that do both FRS and GMRS, since it was leading to a lot of unlicensed GMRS activity. They're going to stop the sale of these radios that include voice scrambling. GMRS radios will be able to send GPS data and text messages limited to 1 second every 30 seconds between radios. The old FRS GRMS radios that will have a maximum power of 2 watts or less will be classified as FRS radios and not require a license. If the power level is over 2 watts, it'll be classified as a GMRS radio and require a license.
And then he gave us 3 different links that we'll include on the show notes. But this is going to affect the radios or the GPSs with the radios built in, like those rhinos.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had those, I've just found it absolutely useless because, you could send the location. What do you say? Once every 2 minutes?
Limited to 1 second every 30 seconds.
No, that's what's going to be now.
Oh,
I think it was. Oh, actually, he didn't say, but it was. I think it was like once every 2 minutes or something like that before. And that really was useless because if you're trying to find someone, you have to wait 2 minutes to find out where they've moved to.
Where they've moved to.
You can cover quite a distance in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure can.
And
yeah.
even this, it's 1 second every 30 seconds. So yeah, you can get updates every 30 seconds, but that's a long time if you're trying to use that to track players in a game or something.
Right. It's 4 times more though.
Yeah. No, it's definitely an improvement. I don't like though that they're killing the dual band stuff. The FRS and GMRS.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense though.
I understand it.
Oh, TMRS is more powerful. Let's use that. Well, you have to be licensed to use that.
Yeah. Limax is asking if the rhinos support this. And yes, the rhinos do let you send the data. At least the older ones do that I had. And that was one of the nice things is you could send the location data, including a waypoint. But it was so slow that it was pretty much useless. The only thing we ever did that made sense with it was to send each other's location as we were trying to find a cache, because it would be, okay, I'm here, you're there, send your location so we can see where that is on the maps, because they didn't have topo maps.
Mm-hmm.
When you're actually, I think it did have topo maps, but we're on flat land anyway, so there's no lines, there's no references. We don't have satellite view. We can't find this cache. Where is it? Okay, doink, there you go. Now we know where each other are, and we have points on those maps to help find the cache. All right. He had also emailed, I discovered something about the official app on a trip a couple of weeks ago. While I was traveling and grabbing some caches in some areas I hadn't visited before, since I wasn't going to post the logs until I returned home, I decided to save them to the app instead of saving them to the GPS. Thinking that if I somehow lost the GPS, the logs would still be safe in the cloud for me to retrieve when I got home. I discovered that if you save a draft in the app, that draft is just on the phone. I learned that after the battery died on my phone while on the trail, and I had to use the app on the other phone that I had the app installed. Later, when I went to post the logs, I discovered the draft stayed on the phone on which they were entered on, even though the apps on both phones were logging into my account. I had to get the second phone I used so I could post those drafts since they didn't show up on my phone. It's a lot simpler to just mark it found on the GPS, so I guess I'll stick with that, which works.
So
the
it's
other
not
day
a
I was
cloud,
cleaning up.
so it only stays local.
Right. That's what he's saying. But I think what's going on is I think I really wanted to get a chance to test this. He's on an older Samsung phone, which I don't think has gotten updates in a while to the OS. So he might be stuck on one of the older versions of the geocaching app.
Oh, the app.
Yeah. So I think that might be his problem. Because I did test it on my iPhone, and it did actually save it to the cloud when I did the drafts.
Oh, there you go. So it does work.
So yeah, it does work on the current version of the app from the iPhone. I can't say that it works on Android, and I actually killed the data service, the Project Fi on the Nexus 5X that I had, because the Nexus 5X is going unsupported soon, and I almost never use the phone anyway. So I killed that data service. It makes it a lot harder to go out and test these kind of things. Yeah.
So what is your everyday phone, Daryl?
I'm still on the iPhone 7.
Oh, you're still using the iPhone? Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And that's pretty much going to be my primary phone for next several years, I think.
Really?
As much as I like Android, The phones that I really like are the Nexus phones, which are now gone and replaced by the Pixel. But I don't like the way that they're killing off support for the phones after about 2 years. And it's announced. I like that they're at least doing that, but they're not making the effort they used to make with the Nexus phones to keep them alive as long.
And
So,
Chris, what are you using?
That kills me.
I have an iPhone 6s Plus.
Oh, okay.
You know, the iPad Nano.
The iPad Nano, totally. The phablet, if you will.
Hey, when did the geocaching app add widgets? I just noticed this last week. On
I don't
iOS.
remember widgets.
What kind of widgets?
You can put nearby caches on your notification screen.
Oh, yeah, those widgets. That was about a month ago.
Okay.
Wait, where is this?
Give or
Hold on.
take.
I haven't opened this app in forever. Hold
You
on.
don't need to open the app. Go
Really?
to your widgets. So just with it locked.
Yeah,
or
go to the
you can slide down
notification.
from the top.
Yeah, the today section of the notifications.
I can go to edit, right?
Yeah, and you can see nearby caches.
Oh, yeah, look at that. How about, when did they add that?
Well,
was
David
about-
Levine in the chat says they added that about a month ago.
Yeah, that was my thought. It was about a month.
Really?
And I think when I played with it, it was not updating.
Let's see, I'm checking
So
it
I
right
turned it
now.
off and never used it again.
It's spinning. Still spinning. Yeah, it's still spinning.
Are you logged in the app?
Yes. There we
Okay.
go. Now here's an interesting thing. I can't scroll it, so it only shows me 1.5. It won't scroll.
Then there are more or less.
Oh, show more. You're right. There it is. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. I see. So it shows me 3. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, 3. I mean, that's not bad.
No, that's yeah. That's
That
hey.
would
If
be
you're
able
if
to
you're
throw
if you're in
it
an area, you need a quick cache. You know, you're in an unknown area. Hey, man. Beats opening up the geocaching app.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for it to log in and everything. So it sounds like it's slow enough that it might not be any faster, really.
I know. Or I can just open Cachely and get it real quick.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Next one is we've mentioned the Pokemon Go, anti-Pokemon Go loss in Milwaukee County. Well, fortunately for us, Candy Labs, which has an AR game called Texas Rope'em, which until this I'd never heard of.
Yeehaw.
It doesn't sound like a game I have any interest in playing either. But
I know, right?
fortunately,
It's popular down south, though. It's real popular.
well, apparently it's popular enough in Milwaukee County that they're going to sue them over it. Because Candy Lab is suing Milwaukee County. And as a reminder, this lawsuit says that you have to get permits to have a virtual location game like Pokemon
Oh, come
Go
on. That actually
I
went
know,
through
it's-
somewhere? That actually went
Yeah.
through.
in Milwaukee County.
So you can't have a Pokemon Go like a stop or
Correct.
a gym without a permit.
Correct.
Get out of town.
And it's insane what these permits are, but they're fortunately being sued on First Amendment grounds. So the lawsuit doesn't go to trial until April, but we do have an injunction.
Of course you do.
And in the injunction, the judge said greater injury will be inflicted upon Candy Labs by the denial of injunction relief. It will be inflicted on Milwaukee County for the granting of such relief. In other
How is it
words,
First Amendment? This is virtual.
I'm
How
not
is it
really
First Amendment?
sure. I'd love to see the full arguments on this one.
It's
But
just a
I'm
weird
sure
argument.
there's-
I mean, it's too new. There's no, there's no precedence for any of this stuff.
Well, it's a freedom of expression. They're
Is it?
expressing themselves. They've argued in one that software is art. So art is expression. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh God.
But
Okay.
Milwaukee County is arguing that it isn't a First Amendment violation because the game and its makers don't have First Amendment rights.
Well, they also don't have permission. I'm assuming it's permission, isn't that?
Well,
the
that's
law?
what they're looking for is the permission.
Right.
But
But how do you get
to,
permission on something that's virtual? It's not there.
Right. Well, and it's insane what you have to go through because their permits require you to get like it's an event permit, and you have to like get and set up the porta potties and all this kind of stuff. It's
Oh,
like,
come on.
really?
Come
And this
on.
is just stupid.
Oh, God. I just don't get it. Yeah, I don't understand how something virtually you're gonna either for or against. How are you fighting that?
Yeah.
What's your argument
Well,
on either side?
Well, and the argument against the First Amendment rights is that unlike books, movies, music, plays, and video games, which have mediums of expression that have like plot and storylines, you don't have any of that with the Texas Rope'em. Okay.
Ingress.
Are you sure?
Ingress and Pokemon Go both have that.
Okay.
So they're basically admitting in this argument against the First Amendment rights in this lawsuit by what was it called again? I almost call it Candy Crush. But that they're
Candy
basically
Labs.
Candy Labs. They're basically admitting that okay, these guys don't have rights on First Amendment grounds, but Niantic would. So Niantic could come and sue us, but
Really?
Candy Labs doesn't.
So what I want you to do, Daryl. Next time you take Fozzie out, I want you to go to the neighbor you hate, let him take a big dump on his grass, then knock on his door and say, if you remove that, I'm suing you because it's now art.
I don't think you have any way to make that one stick.
Oh, I don't know. Have you seen some of the art that they pass off lately?
Well, here's my thought though. We might be able to sue the cities and their laws against the dog poop. That you must pick it up and you can't do anything. We might be able to sue on First Amendment grounds, especially if we name the poop.
Oh, yeah. Carry the little placard.
Its name is now Carl.
This is Mr. Hanky. He's the Christmas poo.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing looking in the, I agree with the chat room. The only thing that you can get somebody on is trespassing. But if it's in a public area, it's not trespassing at all.
Right.
Is it? I mean, I guess if it's
No, but what was going on is they were trying to get Niantic to pay for damages from the people who were leaving trash around and
in a public area.
Right.
Yeah.
They were
in a
upset
public area.
because the public areas were being used.
Yeah, the parks were in use and they didn't like the parks actually
That happened
being
here.
used.
There was one park in Streamwood, Illinois, that had it had some kind of nest. I can't remember now. And I mean, there was hundreds of people there every day. Hundreds. They had to have police come and like stop traffic and stuff like that. And Streamwood was getting mad that people were using the parks. It's like, you're getting mad that people are using the parks.
Well, I can see the argument against having that kind of stuff if it's getting so intense that you have like lines of cars on the main roads.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to impede traffic, but
Yeah.
there should be no problem for using a park. We had one here. They didn't like all the people using the park, so they installed paid parking. That will limit the people coming. Why don't you want people using your parks?
Well,
Yeah,
it's the
I
same
don't
thing.
understand that concept.
Where I moved from in Kane County, the county I used to live in, all the beautiful, huge preserves, no caches in them because they didn't allow geocaching in their preserves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for what? For what's your, it's a whole other topic, but like, it's like, I just don't get it. Nobody goes to these beautiful preserves are empty, because nobody goes.
I can get the concept behind keeping people out of preserves because those might be trying to keep them in a pristine natural state.
It's a preserve, dude. It's meant for people to be there.
Well, I was going to say I don't necessarily agree with that, but if you're allowing people in, then you're already altering the state of that.
You're running the risk.
Land.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and there's paths and stuff. I mean, it's not like there's.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's your feelings about jams and marmalades?
As long as it's not Marmite, I'm all right.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's move on to the Pokemon Go Fest disaster.
My hometown.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Grant Park was ground zero for a lot of discontent on Saturday.
So I was telling Daryl off the air. I had a friend who went to this. He actually got in line all night Friday night to get tickets. Like actually sit in line like old school concert, for Pokemon Go. And he got tickets and he went and he was telling me that like people were there from all over the world, not just like Chicago and the surrounding states. I'm talking about like the world.
Yeah, there were quite a few internationals. And it was limited to, if I remember, 2,000 people.
Yeah, it was like
And
tickets
those
were getting
2,000
scalped and stuff.
tickets
Yeah,
were sold out in less than 10 minutes.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
It was
Ridiculous.
insane. And they only charged
I can't believe this many
$20.
people still play this game.
Oh, this game is huge. It
with
is
the millennials.
enormous.
Yeah, with the millennials.
It's more than just the millennials. What I see a lot of now is like maybe like 8 to 12-year-olds
Really?
with the old cell phone going like this, and their parents are there playing with them. I see that all the time now. And I see a lot of people, in the people our age, in their 40s, driving around in one person in the car, with fast food boxes on the dashboard, driving around, hitting like every gym they can and moving on to the next. It's
right. Well, yeah, we used to last year.
Like,
I mean, winter killed Pokemon Go for me. I haven't opened the app in 6 months.
Well, and it did taper off. Then when they added the new Series 2 or whatever they called it, Pokemon, the next wave.
Right, yeah.
Gameplay definitely picked up again when they revamped the gym system about a month ago now. That brought a lot of people back.
That's what I hear.
And
my
now
buddy tells me all about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's really gung ho because we're having the event where you've got new legendary Pokemon that are only available this week, and then they're going to go away.
See, I hate that stuff. I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they're going to come back, but it's not going to be regularly available. It's only during the events. But you've got the double candy. All of your walking is essentially multiplied, by 2/3. So that it's you need a third of the distance to hatch an egg or to get your buddy candies. So they've got all kinds of stuff going right now to encourage people to play, and it's working. There's a lot of people playing.
Daryl, do you still play?
I do.
Do you really? You open it up actually?
I actually opened it up.
When's the last time you opened it up?
2 hours ago.
2 hours ago, Chris.
Yep.
Last time you opened it up.
Probably about 2 hours, maybe a little longer. But I opened it up today.
Did you?
Yeah, my
What
son
else am I going to do
really
while I walk
wants
the
one
dog?
of these legendaries.
Oh, I want those too.
But you need about 12 people to capture one.
You're kidding.
No.
Yeah,
no. Yeah, so I'm trying to find ways for him, to look for raids when people are going on. Come on, let's go find one. So my son and I have spent really good time together. Either walking or driving. Yes, we're playing Pokemon, but we're talking.
Absolutely.
And, and I look at it and go, wow, this is time with my 16-year-old son that I wouldn't have had if it wasn't for Pokemon. So
exactly, absolutely.
Not everybody likes it. That's fine. It works for me and my son.
No, I mean, I do the same thing with my 6-year-old playing PS4. It's the same thing. That's how we spend a lot of time doing that. So yeah, I get it. No.
Yeah. In any case, they did have just a total collapse of the game in the event, the Pokemon Go Fest.
Yeah.
You saw this in Niantic president got booed when
he got booed.
He got
handled
booed
it beautifully. He really did a good job. He didn't cower from it or anything. He just kept going. Really everyone apparently was very civil about the whole thing. They're just upset that they spent all of this money, and the $20 ticket had nothing to do with it because it's $20.
Right.
It's
well,
the travel,
supposed to
the
supposed to be they gave everybody their money back, but people spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get there.
Yeah, they gave their money back, and they gave them some like $100.
Yeah, some $100 in the game money. Yeah.
And they gave them one of the legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, that
But
was
they really,
Yeah.
yeah. I know my buddy
So-
was happy because like he drove 20 miles and
Yeah.
paid
Yeah,
20
for him, it
bucks.
was nothing.
Yeah, right. So he was thrilled. Yeah.
But basically what happened is they started off having an actual software problem on their side. And that was fixed by making some server side changes, and that was done. But then they just overloaded the cell networks.
Mm-hmm.
And they had gone to the cell providers. They had brought in extra trucks and everything. And this is only 2,000 people supposedly that were going to be there. I'm sure they had extra people who showed up too. But it was only 2,000 people in Grant Park in the heart of Chicago. And the cell networks could not keep up with the load at that point, even with the extra reinforcements. So
Yeah,
this
not
is
that many people. It really is not that many people.
no, this is just another reminder to us geocachers to make sure you cache those geocaches before you go to the mega events, because it's not that hard to overload the cell networks.
That's just interesting that they. I mean, I was in Chicago. I was at the Cubs parade when they won the World Series. There was 6 million people there, and I had it. I
Sure,
had
but
cell
they're
phone.
not using the.
Yeah, I guess they're not all
networks
using.
as
They're
heavily.
not. I'll try. 98% were on the internet. I promise.
Sure, but it's they're
Trust
not
me.
doing like Pokemon Go. They're not doing
Right, yeah.
Periscope. They're probably texting, sending photos, that kind of stuff. It's much lower. Yeah, and the latency isn't the issue that it would be for a game like Pokemon. And that's one advantage that we have with geocaching is we can afford to wait, 10, 15 seconds for that cache to load. We don't have to wait for this monster to come in and then it's gone because it took too long. And they did expand the playable area to 2 miles, I think is what they had said, a Saturday midday or late. And they left the event running through Sunday to compensate as well. But as soon as the players started getting out, it was only like a couple of blocks away and all of a sudden you could play. And one of the attendees that was on a podcast was talking about being like 3 or 4 blocks away. There's still hundreds of people on the corner, all fighting on these in these raid battles in the gyms. But talking about people getting upset, can you imagine how terrible it's going to be to have 100 people blocking traffic on a corner so that they can catch a legendary Pokemon
Downtown Chicago.
in downtown Chicago,
right off of Michigan Avenue, basically. Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't take much to alleviate that, but it was just that everyone's in that one spot, and that's what caused the problems. And the reinforcements couldn't keep up.
Yeah, they didn't think that through.
No, they did think it through, but they just didn't. They didn't anticipate how truly overloaded it was going to be.
It's more like it's like Apple on every freaking release of the phone. It's like, come on, how was everything bogged down? You've gone through this 10 times. Like it's the same thing.
So, well, I'm told that even Apple's gotten most of that straightened out, but they've changed the policies too. It used to be you couldn't pre-order a phone. Now you can pre-order.
Yeah, now you can pre-order. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You can't do something like that for Pokemon. But I think the
Pokemon.
No,
well,
but I think if you're if you're Niantic
'Niantic.
and you have this whatever they are, and you have this huge thing in Grand Park in Chicago, and you're expecting thousands of people, maybe you got to be on the safe side and do some overkill.
I think that's what they did. My guess is they talked with the cellular providers, found out, okay, each of these guys with these trucks claim that they can handle 2,000 people. We're not going to have 2,000 on each of the or any one of the 4 carriers. If we have 2,000 people here, we're going to do the 2,000 people. And as I understand it, they also brought in Wi-Fi. But the Wi-Fi failed because they didn't have enough bandwidth on the fiber, even though they were supposed to.
What? There must have been a Starbucks near there. Why did so many people go to the Starbucks?
Well, I have the feeling that that's what happened is they tapped into the same connection. Level 2 went out there. Oh, okay, here we go. Boink.
Now, I understand that Verizon didn't bring in any more hardware. They determined, nope, we've got enough towers covering this area. You ought to be good. So
Well, I
people
think
were
there
saying
was
that,
actually issues with how many towers or how many trucks they could bring in without too much congestion radio wise.
Mhm.
Because this has been one of the problems that the carriers have been battling for years is how do we get more people on the same radio spectrum that we already have? And LTE was one of the solutions because you can put more people on the same channel because it's compressing essentially the data that's being used. As you get from the analog voice to the digital, it's, smaller packets and, you can fit more in there.
Remember the glorious days before Wi-Fi had passwords, and you could walk downtown in the city of Chicago and just get Wi-Fi wherever you wanted.
Remember war driving?
War chalking. Yeah,
Exactly.
sure.
Going around, looking around for
Yep,
open
sure.
sci-fi,
Absolutely.
or sci-fi Wi-Fi networks or
Yeah.
sci-fi networks. Yeah.
Sci-fi networks.
Wow, I'm tired.
Yeah, you'd go to the city and just look for the war chalk, and it's
Yeah.
just
Oh, free Wi-Fi here.
Yep, free Wi-Fi. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, those days are long gone.
Yeah. Well, and
they were the old days. I don't know if they were good.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
The
like,
old days.
I remember trying to connect on some of those and not even being able to get a single mail out, a single email. They just didn't work. By the way, there is so much chatter in the chat room that I cannot keep up with it today.
And they acknowledge that we're not keeping up with it.
Yes.
We're ignoring them.
I caught a little bit here and there, and basically the contention in the chat seems to be everyone knew how many people were showing up. This shouldn't have been a problem.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
you sold
I don't believe it. Yeah, that's just a fail.
It's not like, hey, we're going to open it up. We don't know how many people are going to show up.
Yeah.
You sold tickets.
You sold
knew
tickets.
exactly
Yeah.
how many people were going to show up.
Yeah,
Which
that's just-
remind me I want to talk about that on the geocaching front as well. But I still think this is a failure. No doubt.
Oh, no doubt.
But I don't think that Niantic is to fully blame for it. They do have, some issues, obviously, but this was their first time doing an event like this. They probably hired out a lot of these services. They're relying on the cell carriers. And I'm sure that, the cell carriers brought in the extra trucks. They talked to the carriers and said, how much can you handle? They based everything around that, and, stuff just didn't work. They made their best effort, but I think it really goes down to this is how many moving parts are involved, and stuff just breaks, and it's a cascade effect that took everything down.
Do you have any idea why they chose Chicago for the first?
I'm thinking just because it's a nice central location, and they probably,
Scott.
well, they probably actually
Just
got
things don't
some
usually
kind
start
of,
in Chicago. Yeah, it's not usually
That's
they don't usually
true.
start in Chicago.
But I'm sure that it was based something on numbers or whatever. But they probably also got a good deal to use Grant Park.
Mm-hmm. There's no way Chicago didn't have to give them a good deal.
Oh.
This is Chicago, and B, Illinois. They didn't get a good deal. They price the hell out of you. Do you know how much gas is here?
Well, but how much are you going to have to pay to do that in like LA?
Yeah, but LA, you'd probably get 2 million people. That's the difference.
Well, and that might be one of the things they didn't want either.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
But I'm thinking it's probably a factor of, where are the where is a good central hub for people to travel to, and how cheap is it to go there? And Chicago is probably a lot cheaper than like Atlanta would be this time of year,
probably, yeah.
and a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
I would not want to be doing a Pokemon Go Fest in Orlando this time of year.
Yeah, in July, August in Orlando. No.
Right.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's a dry heat.
Yeah.
It's 120, but it's dry.
So it actually feels like 100.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you'll be fine.
Okay. We have
dry out, nothing flat.
We have an email from Wet Coaster that's been writing for a few shows, so I wanted to get to it, and we're running longer than we should for this show, so we have to wrap it up after this. But he asked, many companies hold lunch and learn sessions for their employees. Would you consider holding one for geocaching at your place of work? A geocaching 101 session?
At Daryl's?
Yeah, hold it. Would you hold it at Daryl's work?
Yeah,
No, would
sure.
you hold it at your own? Now, Scott,
yeah,
would you
your
hold it in your
employees.
very own office right there, a lunch and learn with all your employees?
No.
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 How many employees do you have there?
A couple hundred.
One. Aren't you working from home?
No, I'm back at the company again.
Oh, okay. I thought you were working from home. That's why
I was for about a year and a half, and then
Okay.
I'm back in the office.
So you wouldn't do it? Why? I'm curious.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mind my own business when I'm at work.
I'm right there with you. That's the exact reason. My friends know I geocache.
Yeah.
The other employees that I work with, I don't consider them my friends. I'm not ambivalent towards them, but you know,
No, very friendly.
We're work related. That's
Yeah,
it.
right.
And you know, if they knew my personal life, then you know, fine, we would be friends. But
I mean, they know I have kids and stuff like that, but
Right.
you know, that's
Right.
about
I'm
it.
not rude to them, but I'm not going to share my life with them.
No, me neither. No. So it's, you know, I'm not ashamed of it, but I don't flaunt it. You know,
You should. I don't know if you should be ashamed or should flaunt, but one of the two you should do.
although I do wear my I love geocaching shirt to work, so
Oh, there you
people
go.
should know. If anyone's a geocacher at my work, they'd see me
So
wearing
you
it.
are
So.
flaunting it.
I guess, yeah, in that way, yes, yes, but
Yeah, I don't think I would do a event like that either. In part because everyone knows, you know, I'm in a smaller office, but everyone knows that I geocache. You know, we've gone geocaching with a couple of the people from the office, so they know what it is. And I know that a couple of the people from the office have checked out the shows. They like watching it on YouTube every so often, just because it's so different than my work presence, and they get a kick out of seeing the difference.
what do you like at work, Daryl?
Your work persona is.
Hey, I'm one of the grumpy people, you know.
You're grumpy at where? You're grumpy, really?
Yeah, I'm one of the grumpy people who has to go.
What
you
is
know,
grumpy
shake their
Daryl
fist
like?
at everyone.
Do you yell?
No,
I know.
no.
I can't
He's
imagine you yelling.
See the scowl lines on his face.
I've never even seen Daryl upset, like even like angered or like irked. I've never seen him irked.
See, that's my normal state at work, is totally flustered.
So you started irked and you work your way up. You just
Right.
come. Okay. Wow. But I've called you at work. You're not like, hello.
What do you want?
What do you want?
Yeah, it's the escape from work, so I'm happy to take your call. It might get me fired, so you know that would be good. No. Anyway,
This is Daryl. How can I?
all right, so that's gonna wrap up this episode because we're well over an hour. We still have more stuff to talk about. So our patrons, make sure to check the patron feed and get that show. Or if you're watching us live, it's already probably gone out to the patrons, the URL for the next one. So make sure to check that out. Before we go and say goodbye to all of the regular listeners, Scott, where can people find you?
Where can they find me? Oh, I'm on the
Give us your
geocaching
home address.
podcast every Wednesday night with Head Hard Hat and the crew. And I'm also on What's Up Internet with Mark Dowding. We do that twice a month. Just talking about pop culture and what's going on in the world.
Which I have to say is a lot more fun because there's no geocaching involved.
There is no geocaching talk out. No.
And I listen to all of the geocaching podcasts, and sometimes I feel like that's all I'm listening to.
You know, I listen to most of them, and yeah, it really bogs up my feed. You know, so I'm always happy when I can go, oh, delete. A show about
Lindsay,
English.
delete.
Yes. You know, when it's something interesting, I'm like, oh, I have to listen to it now. You know,
Ah,
so yes.
sorry, we're punishing you with
I
interest.
know, with interesting content.
Well, and look, this show is over an hour long. But we've saved you, Scott, because you're on the show. You
I don't
already
have to
know what
listen to
happened.
this tomorrow. I'm like,
You don't have
so-
to listen to this. So you can still hit the delete button.
I'll hit the delete button. Don't worry. I don't want to hear it. Yeah. So yeah,
and
so you
I'm
can-
sure that there's a few of our listeners with children who, as soon as they saw that you're on, they're like, delete.
I haven't sworn once tonight. Come on, I'm doing
No,
good.
but they just know your reputation.
I know. Although Chad swears way more than me on our show. Way more than me.
I kind of noticed.
Yeah, I don't curse much on the shows anymore. No, I do on What's Up Internet, but that's
Well,
not child
and
friendly.
Head Heart Hat has gotten worse about the giggling at
If I loosen that guy up or
almost
what? Come on.
everything.
If I loosened him up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wet Coaster says, Scott, it doesn't count that you were on today. There was no bell.
Right, I know, right? I know. There you
There you
go.
go.
Thank you. Thank you. There you go.
All right. Well, next week, as we mentioned earlier, Jennifer of Team AJK is going to be coming back on to talk about some puzzle tools. Then the week after, we're talking live streaming with Semi Shell, and we're going to be talking about the Periscope and the Facebook, but a little bit more about the 360 because that's the up and coming thing that I've been playing with too. Then on the 17th, a lot of cachers are going to be happy. Some not so happy because it's Cachly, which is an iOS only app. So Nick is going to be on to talk about the new version of Cachly and give us some of the tips on what's new and how to use them.
Daryl, are you a user of Castly? You use it, correct?
Yes, I am pretty
you a
much
beta?
entirely. No, I'm not on the beta channel.
Yeah.
I'm just on the live channel. But yeah, I'm pretty much nothing but Cachly at this point.
Mhm.
I've just left Geosphere on the phone, but don't even open it because it's pretty much gone, and I've been trying to wean myself off.
Daryl, did you mourn?
I did.
So I've been a beta cacher for Castly since I've had it. I've always been a beta cacher, and like it's funny because I forget that I'm beta caching it, and these people don't have what I have, and then so he comes and talks about stuff. I'm like, I've had this stuff for like 3 months. What are they talking about? Like,
well, see, and that's
how
one of the
is this
reasons
new?
I don't want to be in the beta channels
You know?
because I got to talk about it on these shows.
It's just funny because I heard Nick. I think Nick was on Gary's
Geocache
show. I
Talk.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've had this stuff forever. I mean, like, there's nothing new here.
Yeah.
But it's the only thing bad about being a beta too is, I mean, Nick with the updates. I mean, it's constantly updating that thing. So you got to keep going back and just. I mean, I've sometimes twice a day he'll send an update. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think he's the hardest working man in
He
geocaching.
really, God bless him. God bless him. And it's an awesome app.
Because
I don't
that's
wanna
not
go
his full-time gig. That's just
I know.
a side
Crazy.
project.
Crazy.
Exactly.
You know what? God bless him.
Yeah.
It's
All right,
it's a
back to
shame
the,
that it's a
schedule.
shame that he doesn't work for geocaching.
Oh, no kidding.
How do they not hire that guy? Shame on them.
Maybe he's one of those guys who doesn't play well with others.
He's actually an asshole. There you go.
All right. Anyway, then on the 24th, we're going to have Andy and Jim of Going Caching on to talk about this year's event, which I'm always excited because that's one of those events I really, really, really want to go to every year. This year, I'm finally going to get the chance to do it, but they always have such cool things, and it is an incredible event, very well managed, and it's a small team that does that. So if you have any feedback, questions on any of these shows, please make sure to send those in to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com so we can get them on those shows.
And are you taking Renee to that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's not going to let me go without her.
Are you going to drive or fly?
Oh, drive.
Really?
It's going to take us longer to fly.
Really?
Just drive it. Yeah, because by the time you get all the TSA checks and everything else,
Right.
and then you got to rent the car. It doesn't pay to fly.
Really? How far of a drive is it for you?
I want to say, it's like 7.5 hours.
7? It's
Yeah.
not too bad.
That might have been including a stop or two, though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I want to say when I check the flights, it's like 4.5, 5 hour flight.
Really?
Yeah, so it's like, it's just not worth it. You spend so much time in the airports.
It's the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time you get through everything and get the car and everything, you're right about the same time right there.
Sure. Yeah. And you don't get to hit the states in between, which,
Absolutely.
Renee doesn't
That's
have any of
right.
those.
They're all
You're
flyover
not
states.
getting new ones though, right? Are you getting
I'm
new
not
ones?
getting new ones. Renee is, though.
Look at
Because
you,
remember,
right?
she's only been caching for 3 years.
Right. She doesn't
But
have
you
any
got to
of
hit the
those?
caches at, no, you got to hit all the caches at the rest stops.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And
That's
try
what
and-
rest stops are for, is geocaches.
Right.
And try and hit the oldest in the States while you're there. That's what it should do.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing that just because we've got so much
The oldest West
going
Coast.
on. Well,
Hmm.
and going caching is actually 8 or 9 events over 4 or 5 days.
Really?
So we pretty much have 1 day driving down, 1 day driving back, accounting for some time to go caching.
Mhm.
And we're going to miss like the last of the events on Sunday because we want to get out of there and get back up here in time because I got to work the next day.
And are you gonna? I know, God forbid, Daryl takes a day off. I know, God forbid.
Oh,
The world shuts down if Daryl takes a day off.
I've got the Tuesday through Friday off for the events. So
What would the office do without Grumpy Daryl?
Have a party.
All
That's what they
in
do.
chaos.
Like, Daryl's not here.
He'll be sending periscopes to them. Ah! There. Oh, Grumpy Daryl's back. Yay.
we use HipChat for that.
Okay.
Are you going to Periscope when you're at the event, Daryl?
I will certainly try, but again, it's going to be a mega event. It's basically it's in a park or in a theater.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we necessarily have good enough connection to the live stream.
So no
So
360s.
we'll see. Well, I'm going to probably do 360s recorded, not live.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. All right. What do you think,
They're-
you're Josh? What do you think?
They're
you're
better. Yeah. They're better quality anyway.
All right.
Well, on that note, make sure you check out the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing GeoGearHeads at cachemaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support our Cachemaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2017 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.